Hello and welcome. I'm Becky with Malvern Books. We're honored to be with you for a reading in celebration of issue 53 of Borderlands Texas Poetry Review. And we've been so pleased to have worked with Borderlands for the last, since Malvern Books opened in 2013. It's really been a wonderful opportunity for us to host their events and to carry the journal in the store. So today is a rather bittersweet event for us, as it is, I'm sure, for all the rest of you. But as we are so pleased to join together to celebrate issue 53. So I'm looking forward to hearing the reading. So I'm going to turn this over to Board President Allison Whipple for the event.
All right. Thank you, Becky. Big thank you, first and foremost, to Malvern for being our collaborators in events, both pre-pandemic in person and then really stepping up with the virtual stuff. We're really thrilled that we're able to still do this with you. I am Board President Allison Whipple, and this is definitely a really bittersweet day. There's a good chance I'm going to cry, honestly. So just so you know, this is issue 53. And I know some of you out of town poets have not gotten your copies yet, especially some of you international poets. And I do apologize, but I hope the proofs I sent over tide you over, because it really is, this is beautiful. The poems are wonderful. The art is amazing. And if this is the one we go out on, I'm so happy that we went out on this one. So it is a sad day, but hey, you know what? We've been around since '92. That's a really good run. That's a lot more than many small journals get, and we stayed 100% independent the whole time, and I think that's wonderful. So. A few other thank yous, and then I will read a poem, and then we will have our art talk, some parting words, poets featured in this issue, and then we will close with Monica Teresa Ortiz, our feature, who so excited to have you on board. And I will also say, so poets, if you didn't get the email I sent out a little while ago, we do have some flexibility in the schedule, so you can read 3 poems or roughly up to 8 minutes, no obligation. If you just, you've got 2 other poems that really feel inspired, go ahead. And since we, it is sad, I know everyone on the board hoped we could all be there today in person, and it didn't work out, but we do have the benefit of we are all together from literally the whole world. I mean, not literally, but really, truly, we've got people from across the world here, and we've got people who've been with Borderlands a long time. So I've got I pulled a bunch of back issues out of my closet. I was feeling sentimental. So if you're at home and you have some back issues, and there's like a poem from, I don't know, like issue 15 or whatever, that you're like, you know what, I love that poem, and you would like to read it, send me a private message, and I'm sure we can probably fit you in somehow. Honestly, like probably we couldn't. So if there's something you're like just dying to read from a past back issue, let me know. We'll try to work it out. Like, I'm fine to make this audience participation. So a few thank yous. First, thanks to Samantha and George Ann over at One Touch Point, who really stepped up for this last issue. Like every person and industry, One Touch Point has had a lot of challenges in the pandemic, and they really worked so hard to make this a beautiful final issue for us, and I'm so grateful that they were able to. Thank you also to Cheryl, who, although being in retirement, has stepped up to guide us through the inevitable ups and downs of the process. You learn the process, and then you only go through it like once or twice a year, so you forget things. So the whole board is so completely grateful to Terry for just sort of being on call to help us with sometimes rookie questions, and just helping us, again, just make it happen. Thank you also to Darcy Randall and Dorothy Barnett, the founders of this journal, who made it happen in the first place, and who inspired many people over nearly 30 years to really keep it going. You had a wonderful vision, and everyone who's a part of this is glad for the opportunity. And as a personal note, I just want to thank all of my fellow board members, all of our editorial team. My goodness, y'all picked some amazing poems for this issue. It's like it is 40 poets, incredible. Many of these poems really just speak together so well. On a humorous note, thank you for not picking anything so experimental that I had to cry over reformatting it before it went to press. I really appreciate that. But really, I am, one of the things I'm sorriest about is that we have to disband this editorial team. I could not, the editorial team for the past 3 issues, I could not have imagined a better one. And thank you to all 41 poets and well, 42, that it, basic edition, 42 poets and and artists, when you count our features, that were willing to be part of this final issue. My goodness, wonderful. And if you will indulge me, I would like to actually read a poem from, this is issue 48. This was the issue before I came on board. This has been one of our most popular issues. So if you're hoping to like buy up some last back copies of Borderlands, and you're like, that one looks really cool, it is. You should consider getting some copies of this, because this has truly been one of our best sellers, one of our most popular issues. And this is actually by a dear friend of mine who lives in South Carolina. Her name is Amanda Rochelle Warren. The poem is called Daybreak, Bee Cave, Texas. It gets colder at night. Our breath fogs the windows and we shiver beneath the green wool blanket. I wish there were coffee in a thermos. I wish the sky was not so dense with stars, dying as the cold light rinses. We pack and we go. I wipe the windshield with my sleeve. We stopped here at 3 because the road was making me sad. We had been talking about destiny, and that was the problem. We crawled in the back for a while, just for a while, our headlights pointed west. There'll be coffee in a diner just past the never waking bodies of White Rock Cemetery, where love lit their 9-day candles flicker like downed stars. But beyond the Exxon and the auto body, there is nothing but flat Texas darkness, market roads and fences that fence who knows what and who cares. And of course, we should turn around, but 6 a.m. in Bee Cave carries nothing but a closed place called Bountiful. The sun crawls along my rear view. Jesus is on the radio calling in his flock, and we laugh. There is nothing until Spiceland, just nothing. Then a little country diner called Little Country Diner. The coffee is coffee and the eggs are good, but the waitress doesn't know why Bee Cave is called Bee Cave. Neither do the regulars. So I poke the skin of the yolk with a butter knife. I invent for us a story about sweetness. I deeply adore that poem from my friend. This is truly a fantastic issue. And I will turn it over to Ignacio for a few moments.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor to share this space with y'all. And after working on issue 53, I extend the gratitude to our editorial staff that is amazing. I've dropped in the YouTube channel and I'm dropping now in the Zoom chat, the masthead. If you want to take a look at who they are, including Saul Hernandez, our managing editor, and down to the volunteer readers that we have. And so incredible gratitude to them for going through us with this process. And then thanks to y'all for being here with us, and thanks to both our featured poet and featured artist. And so I'm gonna introduce our featured artist who's taking time out of his day today. That is his dad's birthday, in fact. So we're gonna let him tell us a little bit about his work. There he is. I lost you for a second. So I'm gonna introduce Rúben, and then we'll hear about his work. I'll say on a personal note that getting to know his work a little bit has been very exciting. If you want to hold up the cover, maybe Allison, we have his piece entitled, and I'm not looking at it right now, but I think you can tell us. It starts with Florida Man.
It's a long title, and I just have to say how fond I am of long titled art pieces. Yes. So this is I just love this title. October 23rd, 2019, Florida man busted feeding iguanas in jail zoo.
Yes, thank you.
Love it. Love that title.
Yeah. So Rúben Ulises Rodriguez Montoya was born in Parral, Chihuahua. He immigrated with his family to an immigrant community in the U.S.-Mexico border of El Paso, Juarez, and New Mexico. He graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University with an MFA in sculpture and extended media in 2020. And currently he is a nomad and kind of loves it and hates it at the same time. Thank you for being here with us, Rúben. The floor is yours.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks so much for featuring my work in your issue. I'm not sure where I could start. If you all have any questions for me in regards to my work, I'm more than happy to answer them. But the image that you picked for the front cover of that magazine, it's from a series that I titled Aztec Speech Scrolls. So I don't know if you all are familiar with Aztec speech scrolls, but when there's an image of a in Mesoamerican tradition, if there was like a person speaking in a speech scroll, there was a sort of like a round furrowing of to indicate that this person was speaking. So yeah, that was something that I was really inspired by, but also was interested in the ways in which titles, or the ways in which like I could talk about or talk about the material that exists in the work could sort of hint at where a kind of narrative could exist within the work. So when in grad school, because my work is about creatures, I don't want to displace them even further. So I'm always interested in like long titles because they sort of hint at where the work is at, or where the work is heading to, or where the work exists. So that's why, I have this like really long title about of the Florida man busted feeding iguanas in a jail zoo. And I just read it because I read it in this like article of like why Florida is the craziest state to live in. And then one of these like headlines was like this person that got busted feeding iguanas. But like I'm fascinated by the ways in which the human and the animal are interconnected, or how we like have a kind of symbiosis. Even though we don't like to acknowledge that, we negate that sort of symbiotic relationship with plants as well. I'm always fascinated by the ways in which, especially as people of color, we get treated or we get animalized. The ways in which we cross over and we get sort of put in positions. We sort of get when we cross over to the States, we get put in small spaces, or we get put in cramped conditions, or we're not given the same sort of, we're not given like proper education, we don't get the same kind of nutritional value out of the foods that we consume. So I'm always like interested in the ways in which we are animalized, but I'm fascinated as well by the ways in which we have a connection with the animal as people of color. So yeah, that's basically like the work that I have. And I'm yeah, like I'm fascinated by like like titles and the poetics of that, because they always point to imagery, right? Like yes, my work is an actual visual thing, but words are always like a way in which like things can be more visually appealing, or they can create like a visual syntax or a visual like a mimesis, like where like a bunch of like ideas and things can come together in visual language. So that I come from I did like a major in Spanish. I majored in Spanish as an undergrad. So I'm always really interested in at pointing at a kind of like um, a language that is there for the work, because I think, especially thinking about just the ways in which stories and who gets to tell those stories. And so in relationship to like thinking about like mythologies, or like Mesoamerican mythologies, and the ways in which like there's a kind of erasure that happens with these things. I'm always like fascinated by the ways in which like we can sort of build on those things that were erased. So yeah, like titles and material descriptions are so important to sort of edge into something that speaks on a larger narrative. But yeah, thank you.
I do have one quick question, because as someone who does not work in multimedia at all, like what informs the materials you decide to use in these sculptures? That is the thing that to me is most compelling, is the pieces that incorporate ceramic and fiber. Like how do you make those decisions?
Well, I mean, I'm I think it starts off because I have the all of the material that you see is my clothes that I smeared with a kind of pigmented silicone. So on the third image, I think you could see it more clearly, but it's just like my clothes smeared with silicone. But I like the ways in which like silicone sort of is a stand-in for our society, like the ways in which we live in a world of plasticity. And then I'm really thinking about the sci-fi a lot. So that these Dune just came out like this weekend, and so many of like these prop or like imageries that like happens in like the sci-fi happens through like ideas of like the material of silicone. But also like like I am also thinking about like transformation of like becoming like turn like be like a body that can transform to an animal. And so like a silicone as like in terms of like plastic surgery is like a very easy way to like think about like a body that can transform in very like obvious ways. But also like I pick up material, and I think that's what you're like sort of leaning to. I pick up material from when I'm like driving, and wherever I am at. And it starts off with like the sombreros that I use. Like that one is like a mariachi sombrero. So I like the ways in which I think about like hyper masculinity exists in the world. And so like, a mariachi sombrero is like a gaudy thing that has all these sequins and has all these like gold embellishments. But when you think about like a queer person wearing like a sequin dress, there's a kind of like a potential for violence that could happen to that body. So the ways in which like masculinity exists in the world, and the ways in which like we enhance that as a society. So then like you have the Mexican sombrero, and then you move on to like car culture, and then you move on to like the imagery of like police, or the imagery of like NASA, and the ways in which like these sort of vessels are there to enhance like petrocapitalism, or there to enhance like hard like just like in terms of like the ways in which like we're trying to like figure out our world is through like hard power. And so I'm really fascinated by like sort of collapsing these materials and creating something new. it's almost like this dystopia that is happening with the work, where like material that exists in the world sort of gets reused and is used for creating like a creature, or creating like a spaceship, or creating like yeah, like these homes for these creatures to exist out of the detritus that exists in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, I just,
Mhm.
your work truly, it's so, yeah, it is beyond my poet's comprehension, but I mean, it's like, I can't stop looking at it. I love it.
Okay, y'all, if y'all got anything else for Rúben, you can drop it in the chat. I want to say thank you so much for your for sharing your art with us. I love the cover image. It has sent me down many paths of thought, and I really appreciate your words today to go together with the art that you've shared with us. So unless there are any other questions that folks want to drop in the chat, we can thank Rúben for being the featured artist and his excellent work for our final issue 53. And thank you so much for being with us today, Rúben. Feliz cumpleaños a tu papá.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I can stay for a little bit, but yeah, I'll linger on as long as I can.
Right. All right, thank you. So next on our program, we have a few parting words from just a few of our veteran Borderlands folks. But first, I do, please indulge me reading. This is from issue 52. This is Riley Morrison's poem, and it is an ekphrastic poem that was inspired by a photograph titled Men Standing with Pile of Buffalo Skulls, Michigan Carbon Works, located in the Detroit Public Library. Bison skulls to be used for fertilizer, 1892. Piled so high, wide, they're no longer bones, more like stones to be quarried, haunting and white like eager foaming waves. So high and wide, the eye sockets disappear in the granules, the only shadows, gaps between one skull and the next. Bones so high, so wide, wish I could heave flesh back over you like blankets, tuck it under your naked ivory chin, and convince God to breathe wild back in this pile. Wish I could ruin haunting white by dripping fingers in your blood and painting a pulse, by pasting on your tendons, wrapping muscles and hides tight around bodies I'll build from my own ribs. I love that poem. All right, and with that, we do have two members of the Borderlands Foundation who would like to just offer a few parting words today before we go into our issue 53 poets. First, Dorothy Barnett, one of our founders.
Okay, I thought what I'd do is read the little blurb that I sent in to be in Borderlands, since you indicated there were some of the contributors did not have their issue at this time. And so I'll do that. And I don't know what else to say about Borderlands. If I stop and think too hard about it, I will also cry. So Allison, don't worry about crying. Issue 26, 2006. When Darcy Randall, Liz Garten Scanlon, and I put together a retrospective at the request of Ramona Searley, then director and creative steward, it was not an easy task. We chose our favorite poems and artwork published from the beginning, and issue 26 cover art featured 9 works from local artists and 46 poems graced the inside again. Issue 26 was half a lifetime ago for Borderlands. The governing board has not come to us often. Now with issue 53, we're writing to say goodbye, and thank you to the many poets, artists, writers, and you, our loyal readers. We do not know what we were doing when we began the journal. We only desired a place for poems with an awareness of connection to the world outside of self. Let me repeat, we did not know what we were doing. And yet our desire to create a place for poems about nature, poems about empty roads, poems about loneliness and loss happened. Not only happened, the all-volunteer journal lasted for almost 30 years. That is truly amazing. That you guys, it's just incredible that that's happened. Along the way, we will remember the beginning poets, mid-career poets, and famous poets who have trusted us with their poems. We remember also the joy and happiness at readings as words were read aloud, some for the very first time. And least we remember the artists who shared their photos, paintings, and creative projects with us. They were so important in co-creating with the poets the landscape that is Borderlands. The visual art and word art joined in each issue, each strengthening the other. Limited space does not allow the naming of everyone, but everyone has a place in the heart that is Borderlands. Thank you to all who have made Borderlands possible. Thank you from deep in my heart.
Thank you, Dorothy. And yes, as Dorothy did mention, this has been an entirely volunteer journal from its entire run. Our editors do get paid stipends, but let's be honest, for the amount of work it's poetry wages. So we are glad to give them some stipends, but really everyone who has come to Borderlands has come to Borderlands because they really, really want to be a part of something special. And that's how it's kept going. So our next speaker is Cheryl, who again, our longtime printing guru, all-star person she's the reason we've gotten everything done on time every time.
Hello, everyone. I think I'll do what Dorothy did and read my statement. I don't know who among you have already read it, but here goes. Central Texas fate deposited me in the book industry, where one day in 1992, I had scheduled an appointment to discuss a new literary journal. In the door walked Dorothy Barnett with long black hair down past her waist and the diminutive fair-skinned Darcy Randall. They looked like mismatched twins. They revealed thoughtful and delicate choices for a journal structured as firmly as the lines of a good poem. Their love of literature, along with an enormous canvas of James Searle's artwork for the cover, laid the sparkling foundation for Borderlands, the Texas Poetry Review. Director Ramona Curley's hand from 2000 to 2018 stirred the Texas waters, keeping Borderlands alive and vibrant. Her long fingers of collaborative work included special projects with the Blanton and Bob Bullock museums, as well as her resourcefulness in attracting an array of poets and artists. The underpinnings of administration can be time-consuming and complicated. Editors, contributors, board members, production staff, and their countless hours devoted to this publication each have an intricate history of their own making it exciting to see the first book and bookmarks of each series printed and boxed, and then attending receptions held at a constellation of venues around Austin with poetry stars. Borderlands touched minds, emotions, and spirit, promoting and inspiring individuals and connecting community. Looking back at 29 years along the literary highway, Borderlands has been a collective gift produced from the love of literature. Thank you, Borderlands, for the sparkles. And also, Thank you. I got this yesterday from Borderlands. So a nice ending to a sad day. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, for this issue and for all previous 52 of them. So speaking of literary heroes, so as someone who's been on the administrative side the whole time, I have taken my whole stance is let the editorial team be the editorial team unless otherwise necessary. So I'm always surprised who's in the journal until we get the proofs. Until we get the manuscript to proof it. You know, I have never seen anything until it was in the manuscript form, never weighed in. And so it's always a delight to see who's in there. I get so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I wonder who the editorial team picked this time. And for this issue, one of my heroes my poetry heroes who could not be here today is in there. So before I lead into all of our wonderful other poets who have signed up to read, I thought I'd read this one. So this is from the new issue. Donna Verrayer, on an abnormally warm day in February. I hold my face up to the light, first sun after days of sleet and gray, and it felt like love, like a long, slow opening, a fist unfurled into offering, a bloom in time lapse, shedding its inhibitions to display a soft center. I spent all day looking up, its glow slicking me soothed, kissing my nose and cheeks. Even the sweat it made was holy, so I swiped my fingers in and flung it across the dirty snow as blessing. Now in June, the sun trundles up each day, dependable as the mail, but the light has changed. I still greet it eager as a lover, let it soak me on long walks that are my greatest balm, my own musk gathering storms beneath my mask. I want to keep just one thing safe, to remember how it feels to be undone by surprise in this parade of sameness. The world is uncertain and terrifying, and the sun has always been on fire. So far, it has kept its place in the sky. That too can change. Anything can go up in flames. I love that poem. So thank you to the editorial team for always picking incredible poems. Always. All right, so I'm going to move into our featured. To all of the poets who are here today, I will be calling them. What order did I decide on? All right, I'll be attempting to do alphabetical order, despite the fact that I somehow did not put my list in alphabetical order. Good job. But alphabetical order by last name, as we have generally featured in each issue. I will also be posting some website and social links, and for some poets who have sent them to me, Venmo or PayPal or Cash App links. So if you know it's the end of the month, but if you do have some room, consider a little tip jar offering for our poets, because again, we're an all volunteer journal. So, you know, if you love their work, show them some appreciation. All right, so we are going to start with Kanika Ahuja. Kanika Ahuja is a poet, performer, and educator from New Delhi, India, and an MFA candidate in poetry at Purdue University. Jijifa Fellow for Poetry at Slam Out Loud, 2018 to 2020, and the winner of Quarterly West's inaugural poetry contest. Her work appears or is forthcoming here, Quarterly West and elsewhere, and I will post her social and Venmo links in the chat as she reads. Please tell me. Oh, good, you're here.
No, hi, Allison. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to Borderlands Texas Poetry Review for taking in what I feel is one of my most important poems. And I'm so glad and very, very grateful to have this poem in this final issue. I'm going to read 3 poems. I am going to take you up on your offer. Since the time that I wrote the poem that is in the issue, I turned it into a series. So now it's sandwiched between 2 new, slightly jankier poems. So I'm going to read all three of those out for you. Before takeoff. Before takeoff, my beloved calls me for the first time. This is the closest we will get to holding hands, though we don't know that yet. We are stubborn with love. Promises stretch like spandex, stomachs nervous with desire. His voice lingers somewhere between familiar and foreign, so we laugh extra to make up for it. Giddy, like children begging for 5 more minutes of this imagination. Maybe it's the beer. Maybe it's chili toes tingling on a January evening. Isn't it funny? The way we mark paper towns with our secrets right before he abandons the city. I tell him I've cried at every airport I've been at. He talks about the child screaming across the aisle. There are engine wheels in front of him. Me, an open sky. Somehow, I'm still the one reaching for the oxygen mask. It doesn't feel like the movies, though we know it's supposed to. I wonder if I should be at the airport, cutting lines at the immigration counter, singing "Hold Me" like you'll never let me go, reckless, only the way lovers are. In the background, I hear departure announcements and imagine his voice fading with the distance. Months later, on a night just as dark, he forgets to show me the skyline through his window. Hands on windowsill, I count the airplanes preparing to land. Under a magnifying lens. Under a magnifying lens, my grief looks like the grief of a nation, so I hold it towards the sun. In the quiet of the day, I can remember everything. My beloved tells me we will be undone by distance, and the next morning, this country measures my sadness behind sealed borders. I measure my sadness in the quiet of my house, undone only by the staccato in a voice I will soon fail to remember. I am strangled by these small intimacies. A black turtleneck sweater, the morning azan, the nights we spent entangled in blue light shadows. I gather my fragments like loose change and leave them in tip jars for someone else's sorrows. I'm a breadcrumb buffet in this country's empty refrigerator, a skid mark cartographer redrawing roadmaps. Lately, I've been trying to act out of anything but survival, a day's laughter stocked up and traded for a train ticket. My beloved leaves me nothing, a trapdoor exit thumbtacked to look like an apology, a catalog of promises stacked in unread text messages, word after hungry word, we gnaw at silence till our ears buzz, hallowed by static. Phone lines tethered like prayer flags, blowing in the wind, we both forget the breeze. Where the dust settles. Where the dust settles in the bedroom is where I leave my grief to resemble a dead rat. The seasons are changing like a montage of broken records, and I'm getting too comfortable. Just yesterday, I held the summer breeze in my chest, and now my lungs are cobwebs housing overworked spiders. The body hoards what it cannot forgive. My beloved forgives me his laughter, and it finds me everywhere. I am both his clutter and the shelf, this body a broken soundbox recording footsteps walking away, the silence inevitable. I am afraid of anything that contemplates an exit. Last night, I discovered a wooden panel, lizards vanish inside to hibernate. How strange this intimacy. To know this room as both cradle and cage, I think of nights spent sleepless by choice, a constellation of headlights on concrete roofs, shooting past like promising fortunes, my precious, we crumble like collateral, crack like the dawn, dust settles like stalactite in eyelids, we wake ever in grief. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad you could be part of this issue and be at these readings. So everyone has got their, Zoom names, and sometimes Zoom names do not match names that I have on my list. So Jenny and Rosie, if you are here and your Zoom name does not match your recorded name in the journal, please just let me know. And until I get confirmation from them, Elizabeth Estechin is next. And I have lost my sheet. Elizabeth is a queer, non-binary writer and editor. Their work has been featured in publications including Appalachian Review, Barron Magazine, Emerge Literary Journal, and Critical Read. They are a first reader for Plowshares. Their chapbook, For Love and for Cruelty, was published in January 2020 by Word Tech Editions.
Hey, can you hear me?
We did.
Okay.
There you are.
I tried to unmute and then it didn't take it. So I am having internet troubles, so I do hope that it doesn't drop out, but if it does, I apologize in advance. And I have a few poems I'm going to read. This first one is the only one I'm going to do a content warning for. There's some naughty words and substance abuse references. So this first poem is called Drive. Driving is a thing that makes me want to run or shimmy and shake away, jazz hands and all. Anyway, driving. I'm nodding off, barely awake, but my foot rubs the gas, then brake, rattled ribs quake, 3 caffeine pills buried in my brain. And speaking of, remember the summer we were driving the Ashley River Bridge and blew the tire driving over a split hitch in the middle lane, afraid to wait in shorts off the highway, stood dripping like ice cream in a glass breeze. No man flying by could hold his screams. Oh, and driving a Mercedes didn't last long for me when I floated down Queen Street, submerged below sea level, past the projects, this horseshit tourist city, just heard glug, no more, thirst for oil, the currency of greed, thank God, because did I really need, sorry, driving. Window climbing, driving at night, grinding guardrails and drunk whales before Uber, no taxis, oops, yeah, that was me, drunk driving, no worries, I got what was coming, coughed in holding, bent over to show no knives in my pussy, just a bunch of unresolved needs for therapy, tee-hee, I still gather tragedies in the heavy collection of thoughts I lug with me because everyone has baggage. I lie to you when you say you do not feel okay with the way driving fucks with your brain, and I say I'm not prone to see paralysis massacre every time I'm driving. This next poem is called Hors d'oeuvres. At the curb we're offered hors d'oeuvres, tasty morsels of buzzwords we gobble like a rung spring, a sprig of freedom. And what is freedom if not free? What is a yellow cab wrapped in ads with a dash cam strobing at smacks of faces in the back seat, staring out the glass at the street, eyeing the Twitter tower on Market and wishing for its demise? What is that? You tell me what freedom is. You tell me where freedom rings when I hear the ring of my ears, the ring of bells and beeps screaming for me to move, keep moving to inevitable, indeterminable future specked with the flesh of workers like me, and it repeats like a scratched disc we said was the future and is now obsolete. Delete it all. Delete my face from your Facebook archives. Deplete the tantalum and tungsten from the Congo. Blood blips through our veins like pesticide rains on the bees, and we lick the honey clean, sweet sugar and Mickey D's, smashing bottles at a Coca-Cola sunrise, desperate to be freed. And this last one is the one in this issue. It's called Exploits. They're looking for fresh faces, they say, a broken story, the temporal, a windowless view. They ask for a flood, then silence, exposed, then divided. I never have to hear the words people speak through stares to know they're about me. I shell the shrimp, clean the veins, poach them pink. They're consumed before I envision their origins. Sometimes I foster fantasies of freedom kept on a leash. I speak loudly, with permission. From the kitchen, pine pollen clings to the sunlight. Isn't it obvious? boiling peanuts and yams we adore and atone for, holding hands with a woman I love, safer if only alone. You're not from here, they say, and they mean I don't take pride in the process of taking with no regard. I want to live without my life being at the expense of another. A plastic bag disorients, drifting windshield to windshield before shredding in the trees. Glass refractions in the landfill, false lashes, fun trash, found objects are only found if they are lost or left to rot. How do we conserve? How do we cling to our histories that have been erased? The earth's muddied gills flap open, then shut. My possessions are synthetic, wisps of prayers for preservation. Do they see us? Do they want us? Will they want us still? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to be here and read this afternoon. Our next poet is Jolyn Harris. Jolyn Harris is a poet, educator, and book designer from Baltimore, Maryland. She founded Soft Savage Press as a home for the literary and visual imagination of Black folks all throughout the diaspora.
Hi. Hi, I'm Jalen. Hi. I'm so happy to see you all in the first. It's a little dark in my house. I'm on the East Coast, so the sun is set. But good to see you all. Thanks so much for having me here for reading. I'm gonna read. Oh, I'm the speaker. I'm gonna read the poem that's published in this collection first. And then I will read some other poems from my chapbook. Maybe some, I'm gonna read 3 poems, maybe another one from my chapbook and another one from new work. The Watermelon Woman. Don't look now, I'm carrying lips that get stuck like dreams in a coma. When you look at me, my heart breaks like commas. Or Baltimore, a city of potholes we lie and call a city. Baltimore constructed my body, a city made of ebonics. Colic genetic stuttering, flowers catching the flu. Genetically, I will never be a flower or something worth a stutter in this dream. No one will remember me unless I touch them. In this dream, touch me, no one else will. My mother only ever had my father. My father only ever had my mother. Loneliness echoes like a loon on a lake. Like a loon on a lake, I echo, look, now I'm carrying. So that poem's in my chapbook, Exit to the Afro, available at jalenharris.com. I did the art, I made the book. There's art in the book I made. So check it out. I'm gonna read a poem that was featured on Poem a Day, poets.org, a poem I wrote, which is really a high honor. It's called The Life of a Writer. The life of a writer is desire. I hammer into the page. I make up my mind. The streetlight is not the moon, but anything can be made beautiful under the ease of my hammer. I wish you could see that I write in blue ink, the color of oceans in early mornings, and everything is clear, like tears rushing towards the chin of my desire. I pen what I meant to pen, how deep in love I am, and how silly of me to spend all morning dreaming about love and not expect my desire to set me free. The knives of my fingers tap out the notion that if I turn the key, it will unlock. Admittedly, I am foolish about love. A simple yes excites me, because I know all that I require will be met, like water meets the tongue. It's scary desire. A small fan at my window in the summer, a book light lighting the pages of my life. I'm gonna read one other poem. Okay, I'm gonna read the last poem in my chapbook. I think this is It's what I need to hear right now, and I haven't read this poem in a long time. It's called Maud Martha Reads Me, and if you're unfamiliar with Maud Martha, it's the title and enduring character of Gwendolyn Brooks, but the title of her only book of fiction, Maud Martha. Maud Martha Reads Me. Jalen, you can't keep sitting here holding me like a mirror. I'm not your lover, and sure, my author is dead, but that doesn't make me the Bible. Under all these systems of change, we all want something to hold that will hold us back. So let go of this fiction that you're original for needing to be held. And as much as you think you know, you have no idea what it's like to live in a book. Every day is like listening to other people fuck on the other side of a thin wall. Focus on your own words. Arrange this blank white space. Your black mark is magic. Because across from this couch, there will always be a couch wrapped in plastic that you won't be allowed to sit on. Get up. Didn't you write this poem? Don't you choose how it ends? Thank you.
Thank you, Jalen, and I do apologize for mispronouncing your name. Mea culpa, only seeing things in print. All right. Next we have, let me find, okay, Gabrielle Myers. Gabrielle is a poet of English, sure, a professor of English, writer, and chef. Her new poetry book is available through Finishing Line Press. I will drop that link in the chat in a moment. Gabrielle's memoir, Hive Mind, details her time of love, awakening, and tragic loss in an organic farm. Her poetry manuscripts have been top finalists for Catamaran West Coast Poetry Prize 2018 and 2020, and the 42 Mile Press Poetry Award 2014. Check out her website, which contains information on her books, several of her published poems, interviews, her seasonal recipe blog, and her YouTube cooking channel. And I will drop those both in the chat. Take it away, Gabrielle.
Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to be here and share my poetry with you. I really appreciate it. The following poems I'm going to share from my experience working in a dried fruit factory in the Central Valley of California. And while I was there, I witnessed some things, mainly the treatment of the workers, that kind of appalled me. And I wanted to draw attention to the issue and bring more awareness to the way that our food and the way that the people that prepare our food are treated. So these are the dried fruit factory poems. The first one is called Dried Bits. Foam from a large hose, serpentine coils near Frederico's booted feet. Chlorine air makes our lungs burn until tickled numb. The fruit factory's thick steam, preservation. Eduardo's forklifts scratched ochre. Propane tank, plastic smolder, sugar crystals ignite. 16 conveyor belts hinged together under 10 rows of cloudy fluorescence. The packing line manager asked Juan, the box stacker, "Necesita gasolina, chingon?" Plastic wrap around each pallet mirrors our motion. Fruit refraction delivered onto methyl bromide sprayed cargo trucks. Beside the fruit cutting machine, sulfured amber apricot bits, pressed by morning line workers, still glisten through sanitizing solution. The glycerin room's communal heat. Sugar water steams into fruit. My heart decorates each face with the desert of dangerous border stories. Body adjustments in which the conveyor belt rises from saguaro and organ pipe, clicking water and steel sparks into red dusted air. Beyond the ceiling fan, the blue sky is kissed with exhaust. No one there to tally. Miguel comes with a paint scraper to lift bloomed raisin bits from linoleum. At the 17th hour of his 18-hour workday, his notched knuckles, as cold and cavernous as a walnut shell in a San Joaquin orchard, push against the floor, loosen the ground and flattened fruits from their hold. Astound light, gather flies, catch sun-worn ears, pinned through earring holes covered by hairnets. The next poem is called Quality Control. In the factory, men in reflective boots scrub stains from the aster blue floor, lean and twist their bodies to clean underneath lines once linked by uniforms and hairnets. I watch, water, bleach clean, raisin tint, iridescent spray. Plum-sized rats sneak through holes in the pipe-busy ceiling, feed on lost fruits. Poisonous vapors pull their oiled bellies from factory bins. Undocumented workers sweat, touch pesticide-gassed fruits through food-safe gloves. Inhale, I don't know how many parts per million of methyl bromine. Pesticides hold in raisin skin still dusted, milky with natural yeast. 15 flatbeds full of families from Veracruz and Mazatlan, assigned to the plant by an employment agency. Pyramids of dried fruit, divided in boxes by the ounce or pound. Strawberries from China, papaya from Thailand, mangoes from Vietnam, cut, combined, and sold as mixed fruit packed in California. And the final poem I'm going to read is called The Processing Line. Tapered surface line before descent. Collapse purple fruit, rush down belts, spill into plastic troughs. Flickering lights glisten, blanch vine color, shine on your wrinkled sides. Build in the high turns, drop like leaf-tinted white water on the long falling factory floor. Gather, dampness holds you together, bloated. Months in stained crates, older batches cling and loosen, cling and loosen. Weigh on each other until mold connects your dot-like bodies. Swell in clumps before steel turns, hover, jump over belts and machines, until Sheila plunges her hand into your swarm, pushes you down. Thank you. Those poems all appear in my collection, Too Many Seeds. If you're interested, it's on sale now. Please check it out. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, next we have, of course, I've clicked away from my list at the wrong time. Sebastian Hassani Paramo is a Canto Mundo Fellow and a former Dobie Paisano Fellow. His work has appeared in or is forthcoming in Los Angeles Review, New England Review, Bennington Review, and elsewhere. He is the founding editor of The Boiler, great journal, and poetry editor for Deep Vellum. He is a visiting assistant professor of English at Austin College in Sherman, Texas.
Right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, it's a real honor to be in Borderlands. It's been a dream of mine to be in an issue as a Texan. So I'm really honored to be here, sharing this space with everyone. Can y'all hear me? Yeah.
We can hear you.
Right. Okay, good. So I'll read 3 poems from 2 different projects. So I'll start with the poem in Borderlands. My father's work shirt. There's no one to take out the craftsman and clip the edges of our lawn. No father to tell us to wear work like he does. He wants more for himself, his family. His brow once sweat and squinted back at Mexico. His breath won't forget it didn't know English once. His shoulders no burdens. They don't speak like a dog he barks as foreman of a construction crew. One day he was lifting bricks, wheelbarrows full. The next he could wear his paycheck like a monogrammed robe. His blood tells us we're safe as houses. We had an apartment. Now there's a home, a neighborhood, a garage, a backyard, one of those trees his boys can climb. Everyone has a sprinkler here. Father gives us swim trunks. We're brown boys laughing when it's Texas hot. We glow like him for fun. What is work? We can put in our hours, revving up the lawn. We earn our pay for toys. I crave the cold sweat of ice water. Blades can cling to us like a buzz cut. We can yank the cord, Father. I can wear your work shirt and pretend I'm you, like a boy again. Blue like the jeans you wore, I could learn the value of labor. The gasoline scent still splits me. Do I hire someone like you or do it myself? I teach in button up shirts, and when I come home to borrow your shirts for work, I can't slip into your armholes because there's a child who remembers I can never wear you out, Father, on my shoulders. The loose cotton leaves a musk. Right. Then I'm going to read another poem. And these are from a book I'm working on called Portrait of Us Burning. Studying Abroad in Mexico, Looking Up at Man of Fire by Jose Clemente Orozco. Through a ceiling, the sun's flames shine through the man of fire. I saw him once in La Plaza de Tapatia. I wandered the streets of Guadalajara in July, an inferno. My feet burned and my head burned, and I was wiping sweat when I saw him. He was a human torch. His gray hands reached for mine like I'm not misfortune, setting fire to the earth, smothering all suffering. Is this my father's love? His hands reddening me, whooping his fears out, burning flesh with anger, hot tears asking, why me? Why bear the struggle? The wide world was going to ash anyway. This isn't about the world aflame. My own house has never been set ablaze, though I've seen smoke. My mother chars peppers with enough heat, it licks my tears, lungs, and pains me. Orozco's flames were a step above this chaos. When I saw him invincible, reminding me when my father called me the Iceman, because I was jacketless in freezing weather, trying to prove I don't need anyone else. The way I stood in Guadalajara's cantinas, lighting cigars, foolishly, so I could tell him, don't extinguish this tall, licking flame. I want to die slowly, like murals peeling from the ceiling. And then I'm going to read one last poem. This is from another book project I'm working on. That is, it's a project that's a dystopian poem set in Texas. This is called Lone Star. In the end, Houston will launch us into outer space once more. We'll peer at what they call the little blue engine. They'll call it Earth or a failure in a distant future. They'll tell us the story of first man, first woman, first man on the moon, first person to shape another person out of clay, God. They'll talk about the motherships and fatherships. By then, we'll have escaped the Milky Way. They'll tell us about the little things that once cradled the bigger things, our first son. They will not let us dream. They will not tell us what it means, and we won't know if this is a blessing or a curse. Eventually, another ending will come. We won't know walls because we're so far away. Our children, many generations from now, will ask, why did we leave Earth? What was the moon like? We left Mars too. Oh, our feral homeworlds. Nobody can answer our questions because they left us outside history. In a dream, I'll misremember physical laws and say gravity is like falling in love. We don't remember the ground. We float like cosmic dust and forget everything. I'm alone on the craft now, the faded lone star. I'm writing the last remnant of Tejas. It's the end of an experiment, and distant stars won't remember my name. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to a little order of operations. So next I'm going to call Svetlana Sterlin, And then Cindy Heiser, one of our board members, is going to read a vintage Borderlands poem. And then Ignacio will introduce Monica, our amazing featured poet for this issue. So before I call Svetlana, if you're like, hey, I thought I signed up to read in the main poets lineup and you haven't called me yet, send me a message in the chat. I thought I got everyone, but you know, things happen. So, all right. Svetlana Sterlin lives in Brisbane, Australia, where she contributes to Our Culture magazine, reads for Split Rock Review, and is founding editor of Swim Meet Lit Mag. Her writing has appeared or is forthcoming in VoiceWorks, Entropy Magazine, the anthology Within/Without These Walls, from And Also Books, and elsewhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone at Borderlands, for organizing this. I'm also going to read 3 poems. The first one I kind of see as a prelude to the one that appears in Borderlands. So this one is called 6th Grade, and it was published in an online journal called Hash. In 6th grade, my teacher was always smoking, like an afterthought. At morning tea and big lunch, her cigarette unfurled a Milky Way to shield her face from day sky. Always hovering beyond the rotting fence, watching us with one eye. Waiting for a boy to toss my bag over a construction fence again, or slide my books under a shelf, then accuse me of flirting, then say I should be ashamed. What is flirting in 6th grade? What is schooling in 6th grade? The butt was black when we went back inside to shade in our whispers. Then we assembled pencil cups with whatever we could scavenge, like spirals of toilet tissue without the tissue, stained blue and green and orange and every other color I would cringe at within a year. And the poem that is in Borderlands is called Chungy. We card stack small worlds, for example, doll houses, and search for satisfaction in bubble wrap. Our favorite temperature resides in greenhouses. Glass enclosures are where life belongs. We visit gardens in glass enclosures where we're comforted by the detraction of sunlight, while we flit around the butterflies we breed, tethered to freedom and self-expression. Their languid flight tickles our lackadaisical fancy. Admiring their diamond wings is divinity enough. Dreams are as far away as midnight on the doomsday clock, especially when the nights are as warm as this. Remember, body heat is a communal blanket. That's why my bedroom is a greenhouse minus green. And the last one is called Still Alive. This is a found poem using words from The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Still alive, they traveled like mist, heathen macadam still warm and thin. They stopped. Who is it? Who's anybody? They drag out again. Should we look? Yes, take a look. A nitty wig of ash upon a bound up boy. Help him. We can't. Help him. We can't. They went on. Looking back, they burned. I'm sorry. Help him. I'm sorry. We can't. They went on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of our poets. Before I bring Ignacio up, Cindy Heiser has asked to read a poem from the vintage, that was a long time in the chat ago. Was it issue 7?
Yes, it was issue 7.
I was like, it was 7 or 17. So yes, issue 7. All right. And I'm, while she reads, I'm dropping all of the poet tip jar links back in the chat. Hint, hint, if you've got like $3 sitting in your, Venmo, like maybe show them some love. All right, this is from issue 7.
So this poem is by Linda Lizoot Hellstern, and it's called Trick or Treat. When the ghost at the door announced itself, North Wind Horse, large-fisted as the last sycamore leaves clutched around nothing we could see. It was no white-sheeted child that shrank from the pumpkin's glare. We kept silent and hoped it would go away. We offered nothing, not the last marigolds, embers of summer we were saving, not one hard pear, though there were plenty on the ground. We didn't see our mistake until morning, when it hung heavy on the yellowing maples. Snow, eerie with undertones of green, as if someone had set the clocks ahead instead of back. But when the dark came early as expected, we heard it again, our response at the door unchanged, and the snow returned to haunt us.
Thank you, Cindy, for sharing some really classic Borderlands. That's wonderful. All right, Ignacio, over to you.
All right, thanks. Thanks to each and every one of y'all for sharing your work or other work that you have liked from Borderlands. It's really an honor for me to introduce Monica, and I want to thank them for being here with us today. The first time that I ever saw Monica read was at Malvern, and I remember it still to this day, even though we haven't been able to do in-person events for a really long time. And I just want to extend my gratitude to you, Monica, for your work, for your word, for your thought. Monica Teresa Ortiz is a poet born and raised in Texas. And I'll add that, Monica, you've been an inspiration for me, not just because of your beautiful work, but also because of the way that you go after an understanding of what it does or can do or should do or could perhaps be able to do in the world. So thank you so much for that seeking. And for the rest of y'all that may not be familiar with Monica's work, Muted Blood was published in 2018 by I forget the name of the publisher, Black Radish Books, and the more recent one, Autobiography of a Semi-Romantic Anarchist, was the winner of the Host Publications chapbook contest. So a local publication in Austin. If you're not familiar with, also take a look and find them. So congratulations on the beautiful work, Monica. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and thank you for being with us today. And without any longer ado, I give the floor to you.
Can you all hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Ignacio, for that introduction. I'm also a really big fan of your work and appreciate all that you've done and been doing. It's really nice to be here, to be invited by Borderlands. I know y'all have been around for a long time, and you know, sorry to see y'all go, but I'm really thrilled to be a part of this as we close this chapter. Also excited to be here with Malvern again, even though I'm far away from Austin. Malvern was such a great space to read for me, and I really appreciate all that y'all have done over the years for poetry, especially. I'm just going to read a few things, but before I do, I did want to take a little bit of time to plug a book. It's not my book, but there's a book that Host Publications just put out as part of their chapbook series. My chapbook, Autobiography of a Semi-Romantic Anarchist, was the very first chapbook that they put out, and their latest book is from the poet Sequoia Meaner. And Sequoia is an incredible poet. Like, wow, I'm such a fan. I'm actually going to be reading with her in 2 weeks when she does her launch for the chapbook, but you can order it ahead of time. It's called Little Girl Blue. I think you can get it from the Host website. It's an incredible chapbook, and so if you have some extra money, then definitely spend it on that book. There's also another book that I highly recommend, and Ignacio didn't say this, but Ignacio has a chapbook, and if you haven't got a copy of that chapbook, you should. I have it somewhere on my desk. Hopefully he can put it in the chat. And then one of the books that I want to give a shout out to is Ariana Brown's We Are Owed. So that's actually a full length book. So if you haven't bought that one, I also recommend. So those are my little poetry recommendations before I start reading. So I'm just gonna read, I guess, like a few. I was lucky enough to have a couple of poems in Borderlands. So I'll read a few that were published in the book. And then I will also read one that is coming out in a different journal called Annulette. The journal is called Annulette. The poem, like most of my poems, didn't have a title. So let me find. Okay, yeah, just I'll read a few from. These are from Borderlands, and the last one I read will be the one from Annulette. So thank you all for coming and spending your Sunday with us. There is breath between wind and water, essence lifted from mouth of creation to cosmos, sky but wings beating into motion, another dimension, entrance and exit interrupted by the sun. If we divide travel into shivers, inevitable waves occur, forming a lip in the heavens. Elements, ecstasy, gratitude, graceful, shipping our future into swells, carried out by the wind's hand and the sea, undresses, revealing a galaxy beneath threads of light, until gravity bends and their desire unravels a universe. We just didn't have the imagination for silence. This one is also in Borderlands. And a lot of these I wrote while we have been in lockdown during the pandemic. So I guess you could call them pandemic poems. I stopped using the word bodies. It's not scientific. The body is not an experiment. The body was someone once. Maybe you knew them. Maybe you loved them. Maybe they loved you. A body, regardless, held a name unclasped, refusing measurability in practice. I want to abolish thingification, to be a legible being, not a craft. Perhaps I want the body to be a story, not necessarily of utility, but of narrative. Is there a substitute for the body? Let's see here. I'll read this one that is not in Borderlands, but it's something I've been working on. I wonder how you were as a child, if you ever thought about anything except ensuring that everyone else survived, if you even considered your own survival. I know collective work because you collected work in your bones and your feet, measured out generations across a desert and into the plains. Would you have liked the purple calla lilies I brought from the market, the ones which restore innocence to a soul that is departed, even though your body hasn't gone just yet? Still underneath a blanket, I have never known a man's body, but there is yours, splayed thin like wire, pulling air inside every 20 seconds, a rasp that they call a rattle. You met my love just before the last sunset, a moment of shared opacity. Now we wait together in this dark room for Azrael to come, quietly to place a hand on your shoulder. I am not sure if I hear his wings or if it's simply the skipping of the fan. And this will be the last one. This one is forthcoming. On US Highway 62-180, you can find Carlsbad Caverns, a mausoleum of limestone and calcite columns, once a coastline. For a sea, gypsum, iron, salt, sulfur tell us a story about stalactites. Is it a cave or my recollection of childhood? Minerals slowly formed by dripping memories, an imagined walk-through jaws, chandeliers suspended off mouths of soluble materials, thousands of years old. Post-Permian water evaporated, and now we have teeth cast in electric light, filled with explorers on expeditions to watch Mexican free-tailed bats corkscrew across the sky. Nations love to possess. The remaining populations come back before dawn, excavate and mine, a promise of consistency. 119 known caves. Canyons, cactus, and grass will preserve their survival without classifications. The land waits for our return underground. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you to all of the poets that comprise issue 53, all of the poets and artists who comprise issues 1 through 52. We have reached the terminus of our event, which we budgeted 2 hours, but honestly, in my world, like 90 minutes is like, it's the perfect length for a poetry reading. This is something I've thought about, and 90 minutes is my preferred time. So I will close by again thanking all of the poets. Thank you for thanking all of the Borderlands, the first readers who got us through those big submittable queues, because wow. Wow, people hit that submittable queue hard. Thank you to our editors who put out these amazing issues. Truly, truly wonderful stuff. And thank you to all of our, to the board members who came on this journey with me. I do have to give a special shout out to Ignacio, because he joined Borderlands like 2 months after I did, and we were just kind of like flailing for the first year together. So, so you know, Ignacio has really been, and I have like been on this like from about the same time, so it feels extra special. And thank you to all of the organizations that have supported us, and especially to Malvern for all of our in-person events and all of our COVID events. So go buy books from Malvern. You can buy stuff online. They are still doing curbside and private appointments. And while it might be nice to not have private appointments soon, honestly, I'd say get them while they last, because truly you can bring like 2 friends with you, and like nothing has ever made me feel fancier. Like for my birthday, I booked a private shopping appointment at Malvern, and truly nothing made me feel fancier than just getting to like have Malvern all to myself. So yeah, Ignacio just asked me a question in the chat. So Ignacio, go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you for your words, Allison. And I just wanted to take a moment to name our editorial team by name. And so I want to give a big shout out to our managing editor, Saul Hernandez, who stepped in. Of course, a shout out to all past members of the editorial team that have been working so hard at this journal for so many years. It's almost 3 decades. So shout out to managing editor Saul Hernandez. Our assistant poetry editors are Noelia Serna, Bailey Cohen Vera, Alana Torres, Quinn Lewis, Samantha Duncan, and Amoja Sumler. And our volunteer readers are Jessica Dion, Nels Hyberg, S.G. Huerta, Rebecca Linford, Roderick Miner, Halun Shu, Amanda Gomez, Reynaldo Hinojosa, Acela Lee Camper, Desiree Middleton, and Zora Satchel. And so thanks to them who picked poems, who put the issues together and brought them to life, right? So my greatest gratitude to them and to fellow board members and members of the team who have been with us in the past. And thanks to y'all for being here.
Thank you again, everybody. This has been honestly, like this is actually just about as perfect a last, even though we couldn't be in person, this is just about a perfect final reading as I could have pictured, truly. So thank you very much. I'm gonna hang around until Malvern closes us out, and have a nice Sunday. Your copies will all be arriving soon. Shop at Malvern, tip your poets. If you want this or any other back issues, which are now super vintage,